Buenos dias, good morning everybody, and welcome to the DEEPTECH Forum. My dear friends, I know the coffee is good and the cakes are better. Yes, we all like a little postre in the morning, but please come and take your seats because we are kicking off pretty shortly. Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate your presence and we have a great day ahead. Remember, there's no such thing as a bad connection at the DEEPTECH Forum, so please find your seats. I literally guarantee you're going to be sitting next to somebody incredible. You are indeed one of the very select, invited few, because this is an invitation-only event, and we are going to do something very special today. So please come and find your seats, make yourselves comfortable, and feel free to share the love on social media. Just remember to tag South Summit, use the hashtag South Summit 2026, and do feel free to tag the IE School of Science and Technology if you should so desire. Okay. All right, indeed. Thank you. Take your seats, folks. We're going to kick off. So listen, my name is Oisín Lunny. Welcome, buenos dias, bienvenidos, Céad Míle Fáilte. Welcome to the DEEPTECH Forum, powered by the IE School of Science and Technology. Now, this is a private, invitation-only forum for very special people, which is all of you. And this is for founders, investors, corporates, and research institutions across the deep tech ecosystem. Now, today, through curated discussions, expert insights, and high-value interactions, we're going to explore some of the key themes in the sector, like how deep tech moves from lab to market. We're going to look at the realities of scaling science-backed ventures, and we're going to look at the partnerships required to turn innovation into globally competitive companies. Tick, 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 all the good stuff right here. Now listen, this is also a gathering of great minds, a gathering of old friends, and the opportunity to make some new friends. I just had a quick chat with my old friend Iker Makaide, who's a fantastic entrepreneur and investor, a very successful business person here, and he was talking about the fact that deep tech hits differently. It can be quite capex intensive, it can be quite intimidating, if you like, but you don't need to be from deep tech to have a deep impact in deep tech. This is about cross-functional collaboration. It is about industries coming together. It is about Spain coming together. It's about Europe coming together, because the opportunities, my friends, are profound. So we are here in the spirit of connection, because we can't get to the place we need to be individually. We need to collaborate. We need to step onto the doorstep of our comfort zone, and we need to do this together, because that is the only way. Now, my personal motto, if you like, is ABC. It's easy to remember, and that stands for always be connecting. Now, in fact, I'm connected with that young lady at the back there who's the head of communications over at the IE University, and we worked together many moons ago on South by Southwest, back over in Austin, Texas. That's Julie Harari West, and we worked on a great session. We had drinks next to Kanye West. It was very star-studded. And, that's an example of a connection that we made like over 10 years ago. And today we just bumped into each other and we're working on this program together. And it's such a good reminder that there's no such thing as a bad connection, particularly at an invitation-only event. Everyone here is stellar. Please make the most of the opportunity to connect. Now, we're going to kick off today with a power trio of VIPs to open the day, and we are absolutely thrilled to have them with us. Thank you so much for joining us. So let me introduce them first, and then we're going to give them a huge round of applause. So we're delighted to be joined by the head of program at South Summit, namely Chris Locke, by the CFO at CDTI and member of the board of Dos Invierte. We are very honored to be joined by Pilar Carato, and of course, the powerhouse behind so much of this activity today is the Chief Development Officer at the IE School of Science and Technology, Jeffrey Gerard, excuse me. So, my dear friends, it's first thing in the morning, but we've all had coffee, so there's no excuse. Let's give a very warm, loud welcome to Jeffrey, Pilar, and Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Oisín. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My voice is a little off. So, as you see, that's Maria Benjumea was going to be here. I'm taking her place now because I see some of you pointing. I'm not Maria. Clearly. I'd love to be founder of South Summit, but not there yet. No, I'm global head of program, so I'm in charge of putting together speakers, events like this. And as you all know, you've been here these last 2-3 days. This year, it's all about innovation happening at the intersections. So AI convergence is our theme this year. And what better moment, what better activity to talk about that than a Deep Tech Forum? We've been doing this for the last, 3-4 years already. It's been growing every year, and I think we're going to be doing it much more in the next few years. So I just wanted to welcome you all to this very special event. Pilar, Geoffrey, and Leticia as well. Thank you all for helping organize this. I'm excited to see the conversations that are going to take place here. Pilar, if you want, I'll give you a word. But thank you all for joining us. This is going to be fantastic.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you to your organization for inviting us to be here. It's a pleasure to come here every year and see the success of the South Summit every year. As you know, CDTI, through their investment company called Invierte, is specialized in deep tech. So I think it's the right place to be, obviously. I want just to let you know that investing in deep tech is not only a question of allocating the funds. It's something that gives you a high opportunity to transform the society and build a smart and a smart future, right? So that's why our company wants to be there. It's not only just being profitable, that everybody likes that, obviously, but it's just that you can transform the future, and we want to be there. And I want to let all of you, I've heard that there are investors, okay? Yes, from our experience, I can say that science is profitable and deep tech is profitable. Just to give you an idea why we have invested so hugely in the last 2 years and a half. In the last 2 years, we have invested 3.7 billion in deep tech companies, directly and through funds that invest in that companies. At the moment, we have a portfolio from 150 companies directly invested and 40 funds. And I can tell you, we earn money. So as investors, that's what you want to hear, but at the same time, as a public company, we want to make the future more comfortable for everybody, smarter, and get the... It's not just to put your money in a good startup. It's to create a company, what we want, okay? And so I invite you to not to lose any minute here in the South Summit to make ABC, to make the contacts, okay? That will later allow us to create that companies that change our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pilar. And actually, this is a little bit the symptom, and the creation of this is actually mixing the different partners together. Now here we have got the public investment representation with Pilar. We have many private investors in the room. We have a corporate venturing also that we need more actually in Europe in order to scale. We got the ecosystem with So Summit, and we're so happy to collaborate every year from my School of Science and Technology and from my university. For us, it's really something special because entrepreneurship is at the DNA of the institution. And entrepreneurship is at the DNA of the institution. I.E. was one of the founders of So Summit, no? Together with Maria, our chair of entrepreneurship, Juan José Güemes. But actually, what we have done for a long time as a business school was support, actually, I would say, entrepreneurs across the board, but not in the scientific space. And for 4 years now, we have a School of Science and Technology. It's a new kid on the block. It's a startup-built school in which we really want to be industry connected. We really want to connect since the moment one. And one of those connections that we like to do is actually believe in big projects and believe in big momentums. And this momentum is now, and the momentum is Europe. And we need to look at it with a different eyes. We need to be able to connect the dots. There is a lot of things to do in deep tech. There is a lack of funding. There is need of procurement, public and private, in Europe in order to grow. So we don't have our scale-ups running away in the US or in Asia. There is so many things to do, but the only thing that we can start with is collaboration. and having everyone in the ecosystems together to talk about it, to walk about it, to push about it. I'll tell you a little bit at the end of the DEEPTECH Forum about what we do as a network with RISE Europe. But this is really the essence, and that's what we wanted to build today. So thank you for being here. I hope you have good conversation. The idea is to be really participative. We'll have actually breakout session at the moment of the forum in which we're going to make you work. We want to reflect, on the needs for the scale-ups of the future. And so, we're looking forward for building something together today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris, Pilar, and Jeffrey. That was absolutely fantastic, inspiring words. A big soundbite from there. The momentum is now. The momentum is Europe. Now, a little while ago, I caught up with my good friend Clark Parsons, who's a great mover and shaker on the European tech scene, and he came up with another way of putting this. He said, the vibe shift in Europe is on. That was just fantastic. He's dead right. It is on. But why Europe and why now? We are now going to look at the new industrial and innovation opportunity with another power trio. And welcome, Maria Benjumea. Thank you so much for joining us. She has entered the room. Lovely to see you as always. So listen, I'm going to tell you who's going to join us on the stage right now. We are delighted to be joined by the Executive Director at Clean Tech for Iberia, Bianca Dragomir, and she's going to be joined on stage by the Economic Councillor at the European Commission, Beatriz Álvaro González Largo, and by the Deputy Subdirector for Industrial Strategy and Ecosystems at the Ministry of Industry and Tourism in Spain, Marcos Escurdo Olano. Muchísimas gracias to all of you for joining us. Can we have a big round of applause? Give it up for Marcos, Beatriz, and Bianca. Thank you.
¿Cómo hacemos? Vale. Muy bien.
Good morning and welcome. I love what Geoffroy mentioned before, that the moment is now. I would say we are at a make or break moment in Europe's innovation story. And we know we have three big challenges on the table: the climate emergency, the competitiveness, and the security. And at the heart of all these three, we actually have the strategic industries of the future, the deep tech industry, whether it's AI, whether it's clean tech, biotech, robotics. So it's the deep tech at the heart. And we only have two possible futures. On one hand, we have the deindustrialization. Yeah, we can continue handing over our strategic value chains to others, for example, China. And we also have the reindustrialization option, which is basically scaling up all these technologies now in Europe. So high stakes, high gains for Europe now and for the deep tech sector. And just as this is a make or break moment in Europe, it is also a scale or fail moment. We need to scale because we know Europe produces 27% of the patents globally, but only 7% of the actual products that reach the market. So we have a big task there as an ecosystem. It's wonderful to be surrounded here by investors, innovators, industrial leaders, and also by the government of Spain and the European Commission. Let's get started to this fireside chat. I would encourage us to have rapid fire remarks because we have 20 minutes for this discussion and there's a lot of meat here. I would like to first ask you, Marcos, Beatriz, maybe start with Beatriz. Is Europe still on time for the deep tech industry to lead in this?
Well, of course. I do think very clearly that, of course, we are in time. Not only we're in time, but we are part of the race. We are part of all of these developments that is going on and that is accelerating, and where Europe has a big role to play. We have all the assets that we need. We have great talent. We really have great talent in Europe. I mean, let's think of all the technologies that we have now. AI, cloud. They were developed in the US, maybe. But they were not only Europeans. There were plenty of Europeans there because we have great talent here. We have a thriving startup ecosystem, as we can all testify from. And we have great industry. And let's just remember, we talk about chips, we all think about NVIDIA. Why don't we think about ASML? There are no chips in the world without ASML, which is a European company. We are a real industry powerhouse, and we are good in developing advanced technologies. Technologies just in themselves, AI, doesn't create growth in itself. It creates growth if they're used well. And we are really good at that. We are actually leading the adoption of AI in industry. So I think we really do have a great opportunity in developing the technologies of the future, the technologies that are used in industry. I do think we are and we will play a big role in that.
Marcos.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we need to stop with this self-defeating views that we're lagging behind and we cannot lead. Actually, we already lead in some clean tech sectors, specifically in Spain. We're strong in biotechnology. But I mean, I think we should also think about something apart from everything that Beatriz has already said, and it's that in emerging sectors, in deep tech, often obsolescence periods are very short. So a technology change may make the leading technology now be obsolete in 5 or 10 years. So I think we should also, if we want to lead in the future, it's good to try to catch up where we are lagging now, but we also have to think about how these sectors will be in 5 to 10 years' time and start working in leading there. For example, in solar PV, maybe many people think that it's impossible to catch up with Chinese dominance on the silicon PV value chain. I think we should try anyway, but what we should certainly do, is think about how we can position ourselves in the future in perovskites, organic PV, quantum dot, whatever we think will be better in all of them. And also this is why, here in Spain, the Ministry of Science and the Ministry of Digital Transformation, where it's not my ministries, but they've published recently a DEEPTECH strategy, 2026-2030, where they identify the 10 most important deep tech technologies and some actions to lead there.
And Marcos, staying a little bit more with you, and we know that we have a Made in EU regulation on the table, the Industrial Accelerator Act. I know you've been busy working on that, on how to land that to Spain. Our hopes are with you. How do we ensure Europe keeps engineering, it keeps manufacturing and IP here in Europe, not just final assembly?
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's a point we've been discussing a lot lately, and we do favor an approach which is not only in manufacturing, which is important, but we believe in a metric which is more like value in the European Union, where you take into account the technology, the design, assembly. There are some articles in this Industrial Accelerator Act proposed by the Commission that deal with this. But I have to say that sometimes there is criticism that, this is only an assembly line, but sometimes an assembly line, if you do things properly, is the first building block towards building a complete industrial ecosystem. So now we're starting to see some investments in these other blocks that feed the assembly line, and maybe and in some years, or we have already seen it before, we will have a complete ecosystem, maybe even spanning different sectors. So this is one of our main concerns, of course, and this is why we're in the Ministry of Industry, we're developing now the national strategy for industry and strategic autonomy, which are two concepts that we have joined also in our draft law. And this is basically one thing that will be there. We will talk about deep tech as key enabling technologies, and we've also developed or we are developing these standards for investments well made in Spain, which deal like this in a more flexible way than the Industrial Accelerator Act. So more on a case-by-case basis and thinking about a ramp up. So in the beginning maybe you don't bring so much value here, but you commit to doing so in the next couple of years.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And of course, at the heart of the Industrial Accelerator Act is also this drive for, or this, let's say, dilemma of the technology dependency, right? maybe going now to Beatriz, and well, we know Europe has moved away from fossil fuel dependency, right? But also we see that the supply chains, the industrial chains are dangerously concentrated at the moment. Of course, well, when we look at clean tech, we see that PV value chains very much reliant on China. 98% of rare earth in Europe are being imported from China, so on and so forth. Have we been sleepwalking into a new technological dependency while moving away from the fossil fuel dependency?
Well, that's exactly what we want to avoid. You have rightly said that we did have a dependency and we did move away from it. And that's what we are going to continue doing. We have now set, there are a number of initiatives, we are setting the framework to avoid that to happen. And we have to work in different levels to avoid that to happen. First of all, we need to be less naive. We need to be a bit more assertive as to what we need, what we want, and how we want it to work. Europe is not a warehouse. This is done. We are not a warehouse. So you need to provide the right framework for the industry to have opportunities and to work here. And for that, the first thing is you need investment to be easy. We need to facilitate permits. This is something we've worked in clean tech for a number of initiatives now. It started with the Net Zero Industry Act. We have the Industry Accelerator Act. This needs to be easy. We also need to boost demand. And for that, there is a tool that we need to use properly. We need to be smarter about how we use public procurement. These are public funds. It's European money. What are we doing with it? What do we actually need when we go through these processes? It's not just about we need a product, yes, but in some circumstances, we also need to be made in here. We need to have the supply chains here. There are some technologies that are critical, and there we have to be specific, more smarter than in some other ways, maybe. So what do we want to achieve when we do public procurement? What are you actually bringing to the EU? What's the added value? It's not just about we are going to buy European. That's not really it. It's what are you bringing? This is not a warehouse, so are you bringing jobs? Are you bringing R&D? Are you bringing investment? What's the technology that you're providing? And if we go a step further, in some of the technologies, and that includes clean tech, and the Industry Infrastructure Act does that, and the tech sovereignty package that was adopted on Wednesday also states chips, cloud infrastructure. That's not enough. We actually need, for some of the layers, we need to ensure that we have full control. It's a reality. There's just pieces of our economy, of our technology, of our supply chains that we cannot afford to lose completely control of. That doesn't mean that we're closing the EU. That just means that nobody has a kill switch. Nobody can just decide to weaponize dependencies that we've had and we've seen, and they have been weaponized. So this stops here. And there are certain levels where some of the technologies, some of the sectors, when we're using public funds, they're going to be European, and we're going to make sure that we have the technology in Europe for that by boosting demand.
Thank you very much, Beatriz. If we take a look at Spain and Spain's strategic choice in all these contexts, how can Spain, or how is Spain becoming a producer of strategic technologies rather than merely being a buyer of them?
Well, that's our ambition. Our ambition now in the Ministry of Industries is to become one of the industrial powerhouses of Europe. We have some potential there. We've been in clean tech for many years. I mean, Spain is one of the top producers of wind power turbines and components. We were there in solar PV before it collapsed in Europe and moved to China. But we are still strong in power electronics and trackers and other subsectors there. So we have a number of different instruments where we are trying to target these emerging companies, like this instrument we're talking about from IDAE, which has supported some projects. But of course, we know, and I'm also here to listen to you, to all of you, that some of these instruments are not well designed for emerging companies in these specific deep tech sectors. But we do have, we do have cheap, clean electricity. Okay. It will become cheaper, it will become more renewable when we deploy at a massive scale storage in the electricity grid. So we really grasp our solar potential. We also have the ambition of becoming a green energy hub in the south of Europe. Even in some decades, we could even be net exporters of energy thanks to our potential for renewable electricity and green hydrogen production in our large chemical industry poles. So we have a lot, and we have talent. We have talented people, and we have the ambition. Now we really believe in reindustrialization, in green reindustrialization. After many years, where we even said the best industrial policy is no industrial policy. This has changed radically. And this is the most important thing, probably. The vision, and that now things that where we were lagging behind other European countries, like energy prices and infrastructure and talent, now we're there and we're better.
Absolutely, and actually, if you look at energy prices across Europe, countries like Spain, with a high share of fossil-free energy, have proven to be more resilient in this in this recent energy crisis. So the fact that we've managed to decouple the energy prices from the gas this year, it's a key point, and also kind of a building block to build more clean tech, more deep tech technology, and scale them up. And talking about scale, because that's the elephant in the room, I guess, in this environment. We know Europe doesn't have a startup problem. We know Europe has a scale-up issue. How can we overcome the death by pilot in Europe's deep tech industry? Beatriz.
So we do have that problem. We see two struggling points, let's say. First, from research to market, and then from startup to scale-up. To bridge that gap, there's a first line of work that we're putting together that will be part of the next multi-annual financial framework, so it will kick off in 2028. And that's, we are putting together Horizon Europe, which is our biggest, the R&D program, and it's one of the biggest program in R&D in the world, and we are combining it with the European Competitiveness Fund, which means that the intention is to be able to accompany startups, to accompany an idea until scale up. So that once you enter into this program, you can progress until all the way, so that you have all the help you need to keep evolving. That's one thing. It's a program and it's great. But there are two issues that we really need to tackle, and they are issues, and we need to be really serious about them. On our side, European Commission with the member states, we need really to be serious about doing this together, and that's first the single market. The single market is our biggest asset. It's our biggest advantage. It's a huge market, and that's what startups need and can have, and they need to harness the power of the single market, leverage it to be able to scale and be able to profit from it. For that, we need to deepen it. We needed to make it work better. We need to work on the fragmentation that there still is, work more on the services internal market, and stop gold plating. We need to work with member states for that to be a reality. And then we have to work on access to capital. This is the real, for me, this is the real make it or break it. We need to make the savings and investments union a reality, so that our startups have the same opportunities to access capital when they scale than they have in the US, for instance. We need that to work, because if we work, everything else, we have talent, we have startups, we have a very dynamic ecosystem. If we fail there, then we're failing in everything, because we're just subsidizing another region's innovative industry.
Marcos.
Yeah, certainly. Maybe just to add on what Beatriz has said, well, in the public administration, we need to innovate more and analyze. Instead of evolving the instruments that we've been doing for the past 10 or 20 years, we need to think about who are our clients and develop instruments specifically targeted to deep tech and to innovative startups, with criteria that actually look at their needs or at their situation and fulfill their needs. It's something that we have seen. We were talking before, and we've also identified that the design of these instruments, sometimes they put big unsurmountable barriers to this kind of companies. And it's not even the intention of the people who are managing them or designing them. It's just that they didn't know or they didn't realize. Sometimes even stated rules in the EU. So we need to innovate more there. And then I think also we need a less risk-averse culture in general. Also in the private sector, the private sector should also have some vision and see where we are going and support innovative projects that are maybe less or more uncertain, but they may have huge benefits also for the society as a whole.
Thank you, Marco.
But we've seen great things in the last years. Just, I'm sorry, but like 5 years ago, maybe it doesn't seem so deep tech, but people were saying that electrifying high temperature heat in industrial processes was impossible. And now in Spain, we have an electric oven in the ceramic sector, manufacturing tiles. And now this seems the future, not hydrogen anymore for this application. And there were Spanish companies who took the lead and did this transformation.
Absolutely, and we have plenty of examples like this in Cleantech for Iberia, as you well know, from our coalition of leading investors and innovators in the Iberian Peninsula, scaling technologies here in the area. Just to wrap up, I would like to invite you maybe just in one sentence to answer why Europe, why now? Marcos, we start here this time.
Okay. So, well, I think we've said it all, right? We have great talent, great people, we have the infrastructure, we have renewable energy, but the most important thing is now we have the vision and the ambition to do this. And we have the capital too.
Wonderful. Beatriz?
I think that's right. To me, what I see is that we are now, our vision is changing, and we are very clear in our strengths, we are very clear in our weaknesses too, and we have the mentality for all of this to shift. So what I see is that things are changing, pieces are moving, and that creates new spaces and new opportunities to shape it together. So for me, it's time of opportunity.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this refreshing conversation, this frank conversation, and also challenging on these such important topics nowadays. I guess that if I have to summarize the conversation of this morning, I would say in deep tech, the scale of the challenge today requires us to raise to the challenge of scale, and that's where we should work laser focused. That's where Cleantech for Iberia, with our partners like IE University and our investors and innovators are working. And thank you very much. Let's make it happen. Thanks.
Fantastic. Muchísimas gracias, Bianca, Beatriz, and Marcos. I believe we need one more seat. There you go. Thank you so much. So listen, so many takeaways. Oh my goodness, that was just very invigorating, that discussion. It's a make or break moment for Europe. It's scale or fail. We have the talent, we have the ingredients, we need to join the dots better. The positive narrative is very important. John Thornhill in the FT wrote about the new EU tech sovereignty package yesterday, but that in itself is not enough. We cannot afford to lose control. There cannot be the kill switch. The EU is not a warehouse. This stops now. Scale is the elephant in the room. We need to harness the power of the single market. Access to capital is the thing, particularly in deep tech. Hashtag show me the money. Okay, speaking of which, we're going to move on to our next fabulous session. This is all about moving from research to market and accelerating deep tech commercialization in Europe. Cha-ching. I am absolutely thrilled to tell you who's going to join us on the stage right now. I'll introduce them, then they'll all come up to a huge round of applause, okay? Thank you, gracias. So we're thrilled to be joined by the Vice Rector for Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Technology Transfer at the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, Juan Manuel Muñoz Guillosa, and he's going to be joined on the stage by the General Partner at Cusp Capital Partners, GmbH, Maximilian Rowolt, by the CEO of Alcyon Photonics, Jimena Garcia Romeo, by the CEO at Tecnalia Ventures, Asia Rufino, and by my good friend, events host and moderator, broadcast journalist, reporter and presenter, voiceover artist, keynote speaker, serial entrepreneur, and so much more, the wonderful Carrie Fraser. My dear friends, let's give it up for Carrie, Asia, Jimena, Maximilian, and Juan Manuel. Gracias.
Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to be among So many deep tech minds. It's wonderful. I can feel the energy here emanating. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm fascinated by this subject, so I'm going to approach it from a journalistic point of view, because I can see that Europe is a powerhouse of science, that we have groundbreaking research, and that we've got incredible, talented engineers, leading universities, and yet there are still these challenges, aren't there, from lab to market. So we've got the whole arc here today, which is great. So we've got it from the university perspective, then from the startup with Jimena, and then we've got the VC tech transfer perspective, and then traditional VC with Max here. So we're going to put it all together and then try and find out where the gaps are, and then try and fill in those gaps and to try and make sense of it all. So I think it's probably best to start at the point of origin. That's all right with you, Juan Manuel. Let's just look at the broader picture, if we can, as if you were speaking to a layman. You know, what is it with European universities now that are unable to create entrepreneurs from these incredibly talented scientists? Where do you see the main gap?
Okay, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to this panel. I'm very happy to be here. So I think from the university point of view, from our researchers' point of view, I think Jimena perhaps can agree with me. So there are many different ingredients for the situation. So first of all, I would say academic evaluation system doesn't premium the entrepreneurship, right? So researchers are very good in applying for public money, applying for research projects. They do it really well. So they create very good technologies, and they are able to transfer the technologies to the market by means of licensing, or by means of the European project themselves, in which many, especially big companies, are involved. So this kind of technology transfer is really good. And they're evaluated for that, but not for entrepreneurship. So creating or transferring technology by means of a startup is much more difficult, even though I think from an economical or a societal point of view it's much better, right? But they are not evaluated for that. So I think this is a very big problem. I think we are changing it by means of the sexenio de transferencia. I don't know if you are aware of that, but there are efforts being made from the public sector for changing the situation. Also, from the technology transfer office's point of view, I think it's also a problem. So the resources of our technology transfer offices are not enough. So they are really busy in the bureaucratic issues that are huge. So the application of the patents, the negotiation, and the execution of the licensing contracts and so on. But they are not doing what they are supposed to do. That's trying to disseminate our technologies and trying to find potential customers, potential investors.
Why not? Why are they not doing what they're supposed to do?
Just because of the lack of, I am talking about a public university, of course, lack of resources for hiring new people. And this is a very special people. The profiles needed are really special. So it's not enough with one or two persons. So you need really good, very experts in different industries, with a huge network of contacts, not only from potential customers, but also from potential investors. And so these profiles are not easy to find. We are working on that. We are trying to create a venture builder with the rest of the Madrid public universities in order to try to solve this situation. And also from the investor's point of view, in my opinion, not everyone is willing to invest in TRL4, of course. It is understandable from an economic point of view. But I think I'm experiencing very good efforts from the government side. So thank you very much for that, Marcos or Beatriz or Pilar, because we are seeing very good efforts in order to cover this risk prime, this technological risk prime, an investor can see. I think the situation is a little bit different in other countries, as in the USA or in China, where you can find investors willing to invest in TRL4. Perhaps due to the size of the financial market, or I don't know why, but it's easier to find investors for TRL4. But the situation is changing. I'm really optimistic about that.
And incentivization, do you feel at the moment there's still, only incentives from papers to publication rather than papers to impact? There should be more incentives for individual scientists. So
as a public university, so we are there in order to solve societal problems and economical problems. And I think our faculty is aware of that. So the problem is the academic evaluation system, I think, right?
Jimena, let's move on to you, because you're on the next stage. You're sort of early stage startup. Perhaps you could just explain to our audience where you are and what your product is and where you are in the market.
Okay, we're a semiconductor company. So we do electronics. We don't do electronics, we do photonics. Photonics is a technology that is moving light instead of electrons. So it's taking over existing application of electronics, so data center, sensing, and so forth, but it's making possible even new applications like quantum. So this is where we are. What we do is intellectual property. So we do something like this, blocks that can be combined, and combined can deliver different applications. This is an emerging industry when Europe have a strong talent, when there are no strong position, at least from the point of the intellectual property, but where the big players on the electronics are moving over. So we are in that transition. Our situation as a company, we just validated our technology with the 2 of the top 10 foundries in the world, which, by the way, none of them are in Europe, not to say Spain, unfortunately. We have our first customer.
Oh, congratulations.
So it's a large multinational. We have some small, but it's the first that we consider a customer, you know. So we are in the moment of scaling. We are really crossing the chasm when we are starting to generate revenues, but this is a deep tech. This is licensing. So from the moment we sign the contract until we get the revenue takes 2 years. That's it. And we are raising a fund. So really aware of what's going to happen with us. Not providing details of the kind of funds we are talking, but obviously money is money for us. We want to progress the project. We have an opportunity window to establish ourselves in a business that is going to build the future of most of our digital life. So we want to make it.
How challenging an experience, though, was it for you? I'd like to put it in perspective. Was it more challenging actually creating the product itself or commercializing what you have?
I think it's the 3 topics. Is first, building a product, because we're talking about academic talent, and we have amazing academic talent, but one of the profiles you're missing is the product builders, the people that understand what technology means for a customer. And that's, to me, is like the unicorn people where I'm always looking for. And you need someone that is also experienced and networking. So attracting senior talent is a hot topic before identifying what's your market. So for us also, everything is very embedded worldwide, so we need to be we will actually have a lot of nationalities in the team, even being very small, because we need to be integrated there. The second challenge is how you convince these large partners. Our business is a volume business. It's a $1 trillion industry. So we are playing with $1 billion company, the guys from flat in Chambéry. So that's the situation. No? So how do you convince these guys? How do you make sure there is demand for what we are doing? And they take the risk, which is a personal risk, of qualifying your technology, or taking your technology in the roadmaps, which the development is going to take 3 years, and the production is going to last for 10 years. Why they should take the risk to work with a small company in Madrid, you know? So that's the second thing. That's super important for us. And finally, it takes all. You heard about, I talk about 2, 3, 5, 10 years. So we need to find a way. So funding is the third pillar that is typically a struggle. I might say we have a strongly profit from the support of national funding and especially European funding, the EIC, the EIB, which we wouldn't be here without it. But at the time, you need to also get engaged in the next level, and that's when the scales come from. Very relevant day for us here.
And how you talked about industry partners. How did you approach that role? How did you find them? How did you get them to validate it? Talk us a little bit about that process and the challenges involved there.
So first thing is, we don't have an industry in Europe, at least in semicon, not a big industry. We don't have the purchase. So we need to look abroad. And that means being extremely brave, being extremely, and the good thing is we have very good science. So what we did was amazing, was super good, was sound. And what we did was very unique. Unlike university, we start talking first about performance. You know, we do this amazing. And realize this is not what the industry wants to hear. What the industry wants to hear is, it works always. Robustness, yield. And changing the shift, you know, we talk with a lot of people, a lot of LinkedIn, going abroad, a lot of counterpart that make a difference. it opened the first door. It opened the first door to senior talent. So something super important is engage very early with senior talent. People that believes in your project, in our case is an investor, who was a former executive in Silicon Valley, and start introducing us to some of these industries. So that provides the trustability. Okay, the senior guy who has done a number of times this and is now investing, believes in this company, so they might be coming something good. So you need to start by building that networking, and that's a hard thing when you don't have that network, you don't have that senior talent. And what happens to us is, as we start talking with senior guys, as we start talking with big companies, the project became more aware, more considerate, and we've been able to attract more senior talent, more senior companies to work with. Actually, the first one was extremely painful. The second one was hard. Out of the third, we have companies knocking on our door. Hey, we would like you to do IP for us. So it was so surprising for us, So it's a long work, and it's delivering perfectly. You cannot fail.
Yeah, it's interesting you touching on the communication and networking aspect, which generally scientists like to be in their science labs, sitting in front of their microscopes, and that's often a challenge, right, in this situation, is to be able to present, communicate clearly to people who might not understand deep tech in the way that you do.
Well, the beauty is, I didn't mention is, I'm an engineer by training, but I was talking before, I was a poor engineer, so always been in the business. So my background is multinational. So I joined a company with 2 PhDs, with a multinational background. So one thing that we are being very small is we are very extremely active on the communication and the networking, because I brought that background from myself. So that has been extremely good for us. It's very difficult, and I understand, because even the way that you communicate is different. We need to communicate the benefits for the customer. Which when I joined the company, I start, what do we have? I said, we have this. What's the benefit? It's small. Okay, so what? So what? It's being a small an advantage. At the end of the day, you need to be brave and get a lot of no's, and get a lot of disappointments, and get a lot of rejection, which is typically not so comfortable for scientists. So that's why it's super important to bring people for the industry very early, because we have this mindset of, fail and go ahead again. We are used to that. We are used to talk with customers and get no's. We are used to understand that business are people. My first CEO in Vodafone Spain always say, company are people. It's not an abstraction. You are talking to people. You are selling to that person. You are communicating to that person. That person is going to use your product, and it's a person. So understanding that it's all about people interaction, it's bringing that mindset into us, has been a completely game changer for us.
Very interesting point. Asia, let's move on to you at Technalia Ventures. Tell us about what Technalia Ventures does. I mean, essentially, you're at the intersection of scientific research and commercialization. So how do you prioritize what is going to go from lab to market? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically we are what is called deep tech venture builders. We have historically up until now been working only with technologies that emanate from labs from Technalia, and we engage on a process that I will briefly describe, that we believe is a process that de-risks those technologies and transforms them into investable companies. And we've been doing this for 13 years, exclusively for Technalia, and without having actually money. We use non-competitive funding in the best possible way to de-risk those technologies and try to obtain other sources of non-competitive funding. Good news is that we are setting up a fund. We are in advanced process of setting up a full-fledged venture building fund that will work with technologies not only from Technalia, but on climate tech topics and industry topics, because we like industrial stuff, tangible stuff. We'll be working with labs from all over Spain and potentially beyond. And we are targeting a 100 million euro fund, of which pretty much half is already well engaged. So hopefully first closing maybe after the summer. So what we do is to try to bring into the labs what investors want, or what we believe in our track record, what investors are interested in. And we work on three areas. So the first one is the risking technologies and transforming them into products that resolve P&L problems. Because ultimately, although you talk about deep tech investors don't care about tech in itself. They care about tech that can translate into products for which customers will be willing to pay, because in a B2B business model, you need to resolve a P&L problem in a positive way to a customer. And this is of paramount importance to bring into the table from the onset, basically. In terms of the risk in the technology, so we try to identify, obviously, proof of concept, what are the technological feasibility roadblocks that you could find, how you scale the technology, because what works in a lab, then it has to be working 24 hours, 7 days a week, and scaling up industrialization is a big topic, and obviously all what revolves around IP strategy. So first of all, transform this technology into a product at the risk technological product that resolves P&L problems in a differential manner. That's what is exciting about deep tech. But then it's very important, and it's been mentioned also before, that you deploy well-rounded teams, not only with people who are in the lab, that oftentimes, you go on creating a spin-off, and people who are in the lab say, you know what, I'm going to be the CEO, you CTO, and you Chief Strategy Officer, right? So you need to blend different type of profiles. So it's very relevant, the people that you have in the lab. You may have Wozniak, but Steve Jobs is not in the lab. And this is a problem, because someone is got to look for Steve Jobs where it is, right? People with business acumen, with leadership skills, with selling skills, because you need to sell the company to clients, to a public sector, to private investors, to employees, to leave big companies and join you being a little company. And that's very important. And it's one of the big problems, to create those well-rounded team with skin in the game, right? And then finally, what investors want is to prevent also conflict of interest, because oftentimes when you have universities or research organizations, you create endogamic cap tables, you get dysfunctional boards that are not focused on maximizing the value of the companies, but rather contracting to the university or to the research organization, and that is something that scares investors away, because they want to have a company fully focused on maximizing value with a sound go-to-market strategy. So 3 pillars, so working on technology, transforming into a product, teams, and all what revolves around governance, let's say, sound strategy around the company.
Yeah, very interesting. I've got to bring in Max then. Do you concur there with what Asier said about the challenges involved when you see a deep tech company come onto the market? Are you seeing them not ready for entrepreneurship and lacking in creating sort of fully blown teams with decent leadership and communicators within the setup?
It largely depends on the founders that you're talking to, and I want to touch upon some topics that you've already also explained. I think, first of all, the incentive structure that Juan Manuel mentioned, right? And I think you have 2 levels of incentive structures. You probably have like the incentive structures of the academic system, which is mainly about publishing research in order to kind of climb out the ladder in academia, which is one. But then there's probably also the personal incentive structure that you have. And once the founder wants to not only test his hypothesis with regards to, is this feasible from a technological perspective, but if the hypothesis is also, or whether it's also part of the hypothesis, whether I can get this into application, this will change the mix. Because once someone kind of tests the validity of his product, research, company, whatever, based on this, the founders will actually guide through, okay, who do I need to have to hire? Who do I need to know kind of in the industry? And what is the narrative that I also need to explain to investors more broadly? Now, of course, when companies come to market, right, the people have been socialized within a system over time, so you cannot just change this at the second. You say, okay, I'm going to decide to build a business right now. So this is where all of these collaboration that many have also mentioned already today comes into place. I think infusing the need kind of for bringing technology into application very early on in the journey, in a country, in the continent in Europe, and in a single company as well, I think is key in this regard. So And specifically answering also your question, so it largely depends. We see companies where we are willing to take deep R&D risk, but we know that the founders kind of have a view into the future. They have access to talent because they're domain experts and people want to work with them. And we don't have any clue about commercialization yet. In these situations, we are willing to take these risks. In other situations, we probably don't, because we don't really, the founders are not guiding us through the path of what can be possible.
Where do you see the biggest funding gap at the moment within Europe? Do you see it pre-seed, seed, commercialization, scaling? Where do you see it?
I would probably say it's scaling, and also from the experience that we have, for the founders who actually break the chasm from lab kind of through application, you will have Asian companies and US companies knocking, also wanting to acquire technologies or teams. And sometimes these investors are willing to write significant checks already from the get-go. And then you kind of lose the technology again at this stage. And we don't really have a counterweight yet, I think, that in the ecosystem at that stage. I think pre-seed is working well. I think the public institutions are doing a great job in incentivizing, also spinning out of research labs and universities. But where it gets tricky is really at the scaling stage. Also for the given reasons that you've discussed, for investors not being willing to take enough risks, for not enough funding being available. So I think it's about mobilizing this more and also being independent kind of from US and Asian money as well.
Yeah, risk-taking has always been an issue, hasn't it, within Europe? But do you see that shifting now?
I do. I think the overall cycle, and I would say that's not only true for deep tech companies, but in overall, I think we are in a cycle where there's an insane amount of risk at the moment. We also see from the ventures capital perspective, I think the roots of the industry have been in R&D from the very beginning in semiconductor chip industry. I think we see more and more companies and also researchers spinning out of the structures, building on the side while still being in academia. So I think overall, people are willing to take more risk because also the opportunity set that we're seeing right now is large, and also maybe the need. It's about the opportunity on the one hand. Of course, that's what we are focusing on. But then there's also a need, especially within Europe, with regards to sovereignty and building their own technology stack. And then overall, there's a whole new infrastructure set that needs to be built out from scratch, kind of, because we're in a new technology cycle right now, which again speaks to the opportunity piece that I've just mentioned. So overall, I think risk appetite is larger at the moment. It's just not evenly distributed to all companies.
Sure. Juan Manuel, you're nodding along to that. Would you like to add to those comments that Max was saying about risk?
Yeah, I'm very happy. I would say we are experiencing very, very big and positive changes in the last 3 years. Now, European Innovation Act is expecting. And I think we are going to have a lot of opportunities in creating these intermediate instruments, as Asier talked before, in order to de-risk the technological risk and to convert these technologies in products that are attractive to potential customers. So I'm very optimistic about that. Really optimistic.
Great. And Asier, what kind of products are you seeing? You're talking about, you're speaking to the consumer, finding out what's needed, what's in demand. What are you seeing coming into the lab and being commercialized at the moment? And what do you see is happening in the future?
Okay, so I think instruments as Asier, Venture Builder program, are going to be created from now on. We're creating our own instrument. I think Asier is aware of that, and we are collaborating. We are very happy to collaborate with Technalia. And we have paradigmatic examples of Unternehmer TU or TAS Holdings or the engine in the United States that have worked really well. And there are examples that it can be done, and they can be really powerful, right?
Sure. We've only got 5 minutes left, so I think there's a lot of people here. There's investors, there's people from startups that might want to ask our panel some questions. So just raise your hand if you've got a question for our panel, for Juan Manuel, for Asier, or Jimena.
And we have a microphone.
Yeah.
You can see some comedy running from me. I don't
Right at the
run,
back
believe
there.
it or not. It's difficult to tell, I know. Has anyone got a question? Just put your hand. There we go, at the back. Okay, here we go.
Go and do the exercise.
All right. Just talk amongst yourselves. I might be some time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your observation about the development of the market. I'm an international deep tech VC, and I'm just curious, you mentioned that the earlier stage investment along with government granting is available up to Series A, but when it gets to Series B and beyond, it becomes a little bit sophisticated. So how you tackle the problem, or how you see like some initiatives incentivizing either generalist VCs or building deep tech funds?
Late stage deep tech funds. Okay, did you get the question? Muy bien, thank you, Dennis. Great. Who wants to volunteer?
Well, I mean, we are pretty much earlier in the process, so we are generating deal flow to VCs. But let me just tackle. I'm going to connect it with the diagnostic about scaling up lack of funds, right? Well, I actually quite critical about this assessment, because I believe that funds exist, perhaps not in Europe, but you have them in the world, right? And therefore, the problem rather is not whether there is a lack of scale of funds, because I'm going to put an example. What is better for Europe? That you have European VC leading a 200 million euro funding round for biotech, which is going to be devoted to creating value in terms of getting FDA approval in the States and curing initially patients in the States, or having a 200 million, the same size funding round led by international VCs, but with a climate tech company in Europe that is helping reindustrialize regions and articulate value chains with many suppliers and producing in state-of-the-art installations that are developing in Europe, and that perhaps with this funding are going to be scale up and produce additional jobs. What is better? I think it's very clear what is better. So the most important item is not where the money is coming from, but what you do and where you generate impact with that money, whether you generate it in Europe or not. And it doesn't matter whether the money is coming from the US or from the Middle East. What we need to focus is on maximizing value and impact in Europe by having funding rounds and business plans that are focused and aligned with this value maximization. So I don't think really the big problem in Europe is just at the latest stage. What I think is a big problem, because in Europe it's like having a football team where you have defenders, promising technologies, breakthrough technologies that come from framework program public funding. And then what you have are strikers, are VCs waiting to invest in companies. Who transforms promising technologies into investable opportunities? There is a lack of midfield, in my opinion, in Europe. That's the big problem, I believe.
Loving the football analogy. Thank you very much for that, Asier. Oh, we're out of time. I've got time for one more question. Yeah, we've definitely got time for a question.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Yes, of course. So thank you for your insights, your expertise. I'm Gustavo. I lead the commercialization of the newest GenAI capabilities at Adobe, so mostly around content generation, deployment, adoption of the technologies. Specifically towards Jimena and Javier and Asier, sorry, because you mentioned product builders. We've seen a wave of engineers, technical acumen, and you also mentioned that there might be a shortage of this profile that's like the product market bridge, if we can call it that, so the more commercializer, go to market. I was wondering how you consider this profile. I consider myself that profile in Adobe. I'm from a business background, not an engineer. So how can this profile keep on acting as that bridge? And do you think this will gain relevance in the future?
I think this is the essential profile in the early stage. Basically, and I will tell you our experience. I have a team when I joined that were physics. They took nanometers, polarization, and dBs. Okay? And I was talking with people who was doing datacom. So they want to hear losses per bit. They want to hear bandwidth or speed of transmission. And there was like a gap in the language. And that's what, to me, a product manager does. It's like, guys, what you're doing means this for this industry. Our roadmap was extremely dependent on our ability to adjust to that. Fortunately, we make it in a way, talking with a lot of customers, educating people ourselves. Even the way that the academic works is completely different. And I tell you this also experience, and you will probably can talk about this also. It's like they build something, a technology, whatever, it works once, they do the paper, goes Nature, a lot of credits, that's okay, but that's not enough for the industry. Can you do it all over my trillion transceiver production? And if it's a no, it's completely irrelevant. So changing that mindset that it needs to work, yeah, but it needs to work all the time, similarly, and it needs to work on a problem that it's relevant for the customer. Even us, we're experiencing back this issue because we have grown in this understanding and ability to build datacom telecom products. But I mentioned we are kind of recombining blocks, and dual use is coming. So some dual use potential customers are approaching us, and when they talk to us, it's like, oh, guys, our team doesn't understand what you want, and we know we can solve the problem because there's a lot of problems to be solved by photonics related to sensing, secure communication, gyroscope. So apparently there are a lot of things that we can do, but we are again in that learning curve of getting to build those product managers for the dual-use industry. And it will happen to us again. Best approach, if you can, is bring someone that has that expertise already from that industry and try to educate back in your core technology. But it's not so straightforward, and it takes time. And you need to make choices wisely because you're small. So you need to address markets 501. For us now, it's datacom telecom, starting to build in that kind of profiles for dual use because we see a big opportunity. Customers are talking to us proactively, which is not the case usually in a startup. But yeah, I think universities should start considering how to build those mixed profiles. People that kind of have some understanding of technology, but engineers, for instance, like me, but then understand that that quality is what the customers say quality is. That the use needs to be defined, but a challenge in the industry, not a challenge on being like the Olympics, the fastest, the highest jumping or whatever. It's not about being the most, it's about being useful. It's like a headhunter usually texts to me, you don't need to be unique, you need to be useful. So that profile is a success profile. And I think Asier has a lot of thoughts about it too.
Yeah, no,
30 seconds. Yeah. 30 seconds, and then we've got to move on to our next panel.
Yeah, no, super important profile, and then a profile also that oftentimes is not spoken about, but is very important in deep tech startups, are people working on industrialization. So industrializing and moving from a TRL 4 to a TRL 7 is critical. And other than the commercial profiles, that I totally agree with what Jimena said. I would like to put that on the table as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for all your insights from our panel. Brilliant insights from a brilliant and burgeoning industry. Let's hope that in 10 years that deep tech in Europe is leading the way globally. A warm round of applause, please, for our panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Juan Manuel, Maximilian, Jimena, Asier, and Carrie. We're just having our folks together for the paparazzi moments. Just your camera awaits. We're running a tight ship here. Remember, if we don't get time for your questions, we're going to have coffee. We're going to have networking, so you can continue ask the questions over coffee and networking. We are going to have another panel very shortly. I'm not going to do any TLDRs from that last panel, other than it's all about the midfield. So, my dear friends, we're going to move immediately on into scaling deep tech across Europe, LFG. This is all about building a pan-European scale-up ecosystem. Folks, take your seats. We're going to have another panel. Hey, seats. Sorry. Seats, back in your seats. We're going to have another panel and then we'll have a break. So our next session, we are absolutely delighted to welcome from Scuderia Ferrari, Carlos Sainz. Oh, no, sorry, different Carlos. From Mateco, we are delighted to welcome the COO. He's here with his co-founder, Iker Maikade. He is Carlos Sainz, good man. He's going to be joined by Jeff Golfman, Unternehmertum Rise Europe lead, by Dora Handrea, the head of Inspire at the University of Oxford, by Natalia Ruiz, Socia at SC Net Zero Ventures Fund, by Liam Cronin, now there's a name I can pronounce very easily, the Director of Innovation at Novia UCD, good man, and our wonderful moderator, Geoffrey Gerard, the Chief Development Officer at the IE School of Science and Technology. My dear friends, let's give a huge round of applause for our next panel. Come on, thank you. That's awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you, Oisin. And thank everyone, and I promise we will have coffee. And we will have breakouts, and we will work on it and everything. So actually, it's really great. So we went from the previous panel of making the metaphor of the midfielders in the football game. I would say here we joined a rock band, and a European rock band, which is important to build nowadays. The importance it has, because actually if we want to be supportive to our deep tech scale-ups in the future, we really need to connect different verticals together. Connect for them access to infrastructure, connect for them access to talent, connect for them access to capital. And I think that we've discussed that also in several of the panels previously. And also giving access to procurement, giving commercialization, getting them clients to build and to grow. So, well, it's wonderful to have a rounded panel, to have scale-ups in the scene, to have investors that invest in Europe, and to have three major ecosystems that are actively pushing boundaries in Europe. So to start, actually, I wanted to start and ask Carlos, because Carlos, you represent here the scale-up. Mateco is building materials for decarbonization in the green hydrogen ecosystems and products and everything. I know that you're pushing around the frontiers in Europe, also really active in different parts of the world like Asia and everything. What is, for scale-ups, the biggest challenge nowadays in Europe for you?
For us, sometimes it's even, do we really want in Europe to create deep tech winners or not? Because from where we are sitting at Mateco, sometimes the answer is not straightforward. What do we need to create a deep tech champion? We need the ability to innovate, and we need the ability to scale. Europe should be one of the best places in the world to innovate. We have the talent, as we were mentioning today. We have great programs for low TRLs like SEDETI, the EAC, etc. The problem comes in deep tech when you try to scale. And sometimes it seems that the framework is prepared to slow down us rather than to accelerate. That's the reality. So what's different in deep tech rather than in other digital business, for instance? As was mentioned before, the go-to-market process in deep tech takes between 7 to 12 years. Fortunately, in Mateco, we are built upon more than 10 years of R&D, otherwise it wouldn't be even possible. And you need, for deep tech, you need the ability to sorry, I lose the point. But the same problems that we have in Europe, we have the same problems all around the world. The difference in Europe, we can say there are three points. First, bureaucracy. You cannot ask a hyper-growth company to move at the administrative rhythm. You can imagine what a 12 months delay in a permitting process impacts in our competitive advantage against other parts of the world. So we need to simplify, clearly. And second, and most important, coming back to the football analogy we made before, we need these midfielders. So we have great defenders, and those are those low TRL programs that we mentioned before. We have great attackers, and we have Natalia here today. We have the VCs. They are waiting for us to scale, but we need those midfielders, and what we believe is that we need these public programs to help us to risk what we are doing, because those go-to-market processes are higher. We are super CapEx-intensive programs, and we understand that the strikers are waiting for the midfielders to get the balloon. So basically what we see is that the political framework is not adapted to what we need, and the third part, and is a consequence, is the access to capital is very, very difficult. So again, the question is, do we really want to do this in Europe? If so, what we need is, first, simplify. We need to simplify processes. And second, let's create public frameworks who could help us, the risking facilities, and programs adapted to capital-intensive companies like ours.
Well, thank you. And you were actually referring to the scorer, and so I can jump directly to Natalia and ask, because you manage more than 1 billion in funding for a climate-connected sustainability solution and everything. We're seeing that momentum in which a lot of things are happening in Europe. We were actually together, several of us, at the IC Summit 2 days ago with the launch of the European Scaling Fund with 5 billion, and having the corporations, having the investors and everything joining together. So what do we need more? Like, what do we need more in Europe in order to make the possibility for the scale-ups to stay and to build here?
Yeah, I think this kind of big funds, like have you mentioned, 5 billion to deploy in DeepTech in Europe is fantastic, and we need more funds like that. But I have to say that, and probably I don't want to be, I mean, I am quite pessimistic. I'm pessimistic because I see the reality. In my daily basis, I see few funds in Europe ready to invest in companies like Mateco. And it's true. And in Spain, what is happening in Spain? 3 or 4 years ago, several climate tech funds were built. I will say in totally probably 1 billion to invest in climate tech. And 3 years later, where are these funds? Most of them moving to private equity because the asset manager are very risk adverse and move them and push them to go to private equity to finance companies with less risk. That means less technological-based companies, because we know that technology has risk, has a lot of difficulties to scale, needs time, and that's the reality. And we can, and I am very happy to hear that here there are a lot of European institutions. The theory, we know the theory, and is great, and the European Union is doing great, and we have a lot of public money, at least in Spain, huge quantities. But the problem is to match with the private capital. Where are the investors? There are no private investors. I mean, there are corporates. I think the corporates are doing great. Here, at least in Europe, we have very good industrial corporations that are investing in deep tech and climate tech. But normally, in the early stage, the corporates don't have the money and the permission and the ability to invest in the scale-up. So there are a lot of corporations invested in early stage. Great, they are pushing very hard. But then, who is after that?
Yeah, so we've accelerated. That's one of the things that everything about venture clienting, everything about getting the buying also by the corporation. We need the corporate world. No, we don't need only the investors in, and we need to deploy. And I think this is really. And I wanted to jump Dora. Dora at Inspire in Oxford. Like, I mean, you know, you have a outstanding track record. I think there's more than 300 spin-offs out of the universities. Things are going, you know, and we love when we talk about Europe to have UK in. So happy to have you on this panel too, because it's a force for good and a force for all of us, no? And so how do you see that? Because like I think that commercialization and all of that impact is really trivial, and is something that really need to activate. I think that if we have things in the they were saying like there is an investor and there is companies investing in TRL4 in Asia. There is investors in the US to do that, or cooperation to join and build together with. We lack a little bit that of Europe. How can we shake a little bit the tree in that aspect?
That's a very good question, Geoffrey, and I very much agree with you that there is a lack of capital in Europe. I think the Draghi report identified that we lack about 700 to 800 billion euros in terms of access to capital, and there is a huge opportunity when people talk about pensions funds and how much that opportunity would make a difference. I was looking at some data to compare Europe to the US, and pension funds in the US invest about 50% into VC. How much do you think is in Europe at the moment? Now the average is 2%. And what do you think are the returns on that 2% compared to everything else? So I think that has a huge potential for investment going forward, but we also lack an opportunity. And I think that's also probably one of the reasons why we keep seeing the pension age increasing, because our capital is played very, very safe. It doesn't go into VC, and that's something that needs to change. Now, at the EIC Summit, we talked about the Scale-Up Fund, and there was a lot of enthusiasm around it, the 5 billion Scale-Up Hub. I share your prudence around the ambition. Not around the ambition. The ambition is there, and it's fantastic. We really see more people looking at Europe that saying that the next opportunity in Europe is not startups, is scale-ups. But if I'm to compare that to Oxford, last year we had an exit for $1.6 billion. Now, the investment fund is 5 billion for 27 countries. So it's a tiny, tiny amount when you look at the numbers and you compare. So the need for capital in Europe is tremendous. So we do need to attract more, and we do need the private sector to support ourselves. At Oxford in particular, I was looking a little bit at DEEPTECH and what we do there. In the last 4 weeks, we raised, our companies raised just over £500 million pounds in capital in DEEPTECH, and on Wednesday we just had a new unicorn announced due to investing in quantum computing. So what we see is that research expertise does trickle down into innovation, into scaling companies. And probably one of the reasons why that happens is because institutionally we have buy-in from our Vice Chancellor and Pro-Vice Chancellor to say that innovation is a priority, and we will do anything and everything we can to support staff, students, alumni, to pull that research from labs into commercialization. And it's not easy. We have huge challenges that we face ourselves. We have a lot of criticism when it comes to equity from the US as well, but we do put a lot of work into that, and things are working. I would say that when it comes to talent, we have the best talent in the world. We train our students, our PhDs, they are highly qualified. But the one element we are probably not doing that well is implementing that innovation element early enough so that people start thinking commercially when they think about research.
Wonderful. Actually, so we go and we jump the athletics. We go and we arrived in Europe, and actually, I think that for every university in Europe, in continental Europe, I would say, we look at Unternehmertum as actually one of the best hub creating best ecosystem, more than 400 employees, working on all the from funding to the early stage to everything, being ranked actually by the Financial Times as one of the best, the best innovation hub in Europe for the last 2 years in a row. Jana, how do we build that thing, and how can we transfer it? Because it's great to have champion, but actually what we need to replicate as much as we can is champions and hubs and groups and ecosystems around Europe to activate that. So how can we replicate Unternehmertums everywhere?
Yes, thank you for being so kind and bringing a bit of positivity in this round. So basically, what we do as Unternehmertum is we are open as a book because we are saying we need more entrepreneurship in Germany, but also in Europe. So what did we basically did to really distribute our knowledge, distribute what we do, what makes us actually successful? Because we are not we want to basically stay on #1 forever. Maybe we won't, but we want to have more competition. We want to have more entrepreneurship hubs, which are really supporting the founders, really supporting them in scaling. So what we did, first of all, in Germany is we have a lighthouse initiative. So basically, we created 10 of the most successful hubs in Germany. And we gave them from public money, so the public money, or the government chipped in and gave every of these 10 hubs or these factories 10 million, but they had also to basically find another 10 million to really show the commitment. And this is basically how we do then distribute our knowledge and basically grow these young startup hubs in Germany. And what we said, this is not enough. We don't want to just stay locally. And this is why we created Rise Europe. And we have some Rise Europe members here. So we have Oxford here, we have IE here, who are all Rise Europe members. So what's Rise Europe? It's basically a network of 20 entrepreneurship hubs and across 14 countries. And what we are doing is really connecting these ecosystems. And why do we believe that this is so important? Because I love to compare Europe a bit with an electricity grid. So we are extremely good of really producing these power plants. So in every country we have great entrepreneurship hubs, and they are basically producing great talent. They're having are connected with really great investors. They have basically we have the great basis, the best universities also globally. But what is missing in this whole metaphor is basically the scaling infrastructure. And the scaling infrastructure is, for me, the grid. So basically, we are producing energy off grid. And and for me, it's why we are doing that. And so what we do, or have to do right now to really support these scale-ups is produce this grid, or to build this grid. And this grid is exactly what Rise Europe is. So really opening these networks, bringing these entrepreneurship hubs together. So for example, if you have an investor who is not risky enough to invest into a startup here, then this Spanish startup can easily connect with, for example, more risky investor in Sweden or a more risky investor in Denmark, and connecting or moving this energy of talents, of capital, of infrastructure, and of knowledge. This is exactly what we need to, at the end, really support startups to scale in Europe and to stay in Europe, because otherwise we will lose them. And yeah, this is basically what we do and what we started to do. And maybe to bring another positive thing into this round, I'm positive about the Scale Up Fund because this is one of the things which the EU Commission is pushing, and it's pushing the Scale Up Fund to have more capital. It's pushing for EU Inc. to harmonize what you were mentioning and make the structure much more easier. And it's also pushing exactly what we started with Rise Europe to really connect these hubs. So I think they are on a good way. And it definitely needs speed and risk averse. Shouldn't be risk averse. We should take more risk. But I think we are in a good way, and we should stay positive, because the biggest thing what we should change is mindset. If we are negative, then honestly, sorry, but then you lost the race without even starting the marathon. So I would love to really maybe be sometimes a bit more American and be more positive and really be proud of what we already created. And I would give that to everyone in this room, to be a bit more positive if you leave this room, if you want to take one thing away.
We are evangelists, so let's be positive. But it's true that we also lack and we need competitiveness. And this week it was really interesting, and we were kind of internally joking about that in the beginning of the week, because I don't know, how many saw the announcement of Barneton about the Built in Europe campaign and the founders of Mistral and different great companies uniting together to support through an investment fund also, and really tell founders in Europe, hey, look, before to look anywhere, look and connect. And actually it was 2 days before the European EIC Summit and the announcement of the European Scale-Up Fund, and EQT running it and have been chosen for it. And so actually, the internal joke was great. We're starting to have competitiveness in Europe. Like we have actually announcement competing with each other. We have a Built in Europe just 2 days before the other, you know, putting themselves also on the radar. So that means that their momentum, their action, their willingness, and we need more of that, and we need more of that spirit in Europe and that mindset, as Diana was saying. But Liam, I wanted to ask, because Ireland has been, you know, a success story in terms of innovation deployment, in terms of attracting the best tech companies for years. Being a small country, and University College Dublin and Nova UCD has been, you know, tremendously influential in there, going from that research into spin-off, etc. So can we adapt that model? And I also know that Ireland right now is facing actually a little transformation, no, because of AI and everything. Those technological industries that have come, those millions of jobs that have been created there, actually need new scale-ups to actually be built and attract that talent because of AI and the possibilities of impact it might have on labor there. So how can we get from the Irish a way of doing things some inputs that we can do for Europe in terms of scaling?
Yeah, no, thanks, Jeffrey. I think the key thing, and I know we're talking about the team analogy quite a lot here, is just bringing it all together. And, you know, you mentioned at the start the 5 challenges. And the one area that I feel we still haven't addressed well enough is the whole access to procurement, access to corporates. And if I took anything from the last 2 days in Brussels, I really get a sense that that is the next area the Commission and a lot of key stakeholders want to look at. I mean, the 5 billion fund was excellent, and I agree with you, there's more that needs to happen, but I think it's a good start. But I think there's a lot of challenges around procurement, and I suppose if I look at Ireland, like our success story came from a lot of the large corporates that came to Ireland in the 90s. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work in Microsoft for 25 years, and the learning I got from that, I'm now bringing back into the startup world. You know, you learn about communicating across different cultures. You learn about resilience. You learn about how important it is to have the complete team. And, you know, in Ireland in the 1990s, we didn't have any of those skills, and we learned them through working with the different corporates and bringing that forward. And I think now what we need to do is connect our startups in with the corporate ecosystem. I guess if I look at one of our most innovative startups within University College Dublin, it's a quantum computing company called Equal One. They were at the EIC event over the last couple of days. They've kind of addressed the 4 challenges. We've helped them with the infrastructure within the university. We've helped them get the right talent through interns and graduates. You know, they've managed to get quite successful funding. We have an Atlantic Bridge Venture Fund. But what they haven't managed is to get that sale. And, I always say to startups, it's a lot easier. Sometimes the best path to fundraising is actually selling, because if you're selling, you don't have to raise as much funds. But I'm glad to see now they're kind of getting there with that. They've started building relationships with NVIDIA. They've done a deal with a French. So that to me is the last part of the jigsaw for them. And then hopefully, they'll get acquired and they'll have a good exit. And we'll be happy because we've got some a shareholding in the company. I guess, look, the AI challenge is everywhere. It's there for us in Ireland as well. And look, it's an opportunity. I think we've got to embrace it. I think one thing I would have taken from the last 2 days at the summit in Brussels is just the positivity from everybody there. And I think everyone's very excited about how quickly we've turned around the Scale-Up Fund in a year. But we need to go faster and faster. And that is the challenge in Europe. And I think one of the earlier speakers talked about the bureaucracy kind of holding. I see it within our own technology transfer office in Dublin. I'd much rather our technology transfer managers were spending more time with the startups and with the academics and helping them to figure out the ideas and figure out the customer, yet they're stuck doing licensing agreements or patents or trying to get those through. The other thing which we all need to do, in terms of AI is just really engage with the customer. I think it's one of our big gaps in the research areas. We don't get the voice of the customer enough in. Like I see with our own researchers in Dublin, they think they can meet the customer in the building. You've got to get out, you've got to network. And I think that's one of the big strengths we have in Europe. We're good at communicating, we're good at networking. You know, we're very resilient as well across the different countries. And if we can come back to the football analogy, we can bring it all together as one team. I think we can certainly go a long way. And like hopefully today is an example of this, like where you have, you know, a hub from Germany, a hub from the UK, and a hub from Ireland, you know, coming to Madrid to talk here and be engaged and learn from what's happening in Spain and bring that back. And that's what the Rise Europe Consortium does, and we're hoping to do more of that over the next while.
That's great. And actually, I wanted to ask, because you mentioned quantum, okay, so it looks like quantum was the hot topic in Nova UCD. I want to ask actually Dora and Jana, what is in DEEPTECH at your ecosystems? What is the hot topic? I can say that in Spain, it's clean tech. Huh? And I say that we have the momentum. We have wonderful companies, and Mateco one of them. But and we see that flourish and vertical, really going from the early stage to actually the investment. But in yours, what are the hot topics?
Definitely deep tech. So talking about quantum computing, even this week, has just been at the top of the list. Everyone wants to look into it, everyone wants to invest into it, and no one seems to understand it. So that's the funny thing. But we are looking at Oxford actually to build more verticals on quantum computing. We do have support from Innovate UK, which is the enterprise agency of the country. They have actually put out a call for £11.5 million. So UK is actually encouraging universities and research centers to do more of that. And I mentioned that when it comes to Oxford in particular, we are very fortunate to have, I think, the 4th highest number of deep tech founders living in the area. So for us, access to capital is as important as access to talent, and that expertise of people who have been part of the C team and have experience of scaling a company, they tend to come back to their origins in Oxfordshire, in the UK, and they want to contribute to the ecosystem. So I think that theme for this.
And I think that we also touch on the bring back. No, I think there's a momentum also to bring back our European founders that have gone in other places and put infrastructure to make them come, redo, rebuild, or even reset their companies here. Jana, what is happening in Germany? Where are the hot topics? Are we also on quantum? No, I don't think that. I'm sure quantum is everywhere because it's, you know, as in the soup, it's like AI. But what are the fields also that you're seeing a lot in momentum?
I mean, if you look into the last investment round, so basically in the last half of a year, or like almost a year, like what are the startups in our ecosystem like which got the biggest rounds, and we're talking about like 200 million investment. It's basically ESA Aerospace, 180 million. It's so space and defense.
Space and defense.
And then it's Quantum Diamond got 200 million, and then we have Fusion. So Proxima Fusion got also like 200 million, and they're building a new factory. So I would say like quantum. Space and defense.
Great, wonderful. Fusion. So we have 4 minutes left, and I just wanted to open the floor a little bit if we have any questions in the room and everything, and taking the opportunity. I see your hand raised. Do we have any order? Because like I saw you ask a question before, which I'm really happy to have a second one, but if we have anyone else that want to jump in.
Thank you for your panel. Two quick questions. The first one, you've stressed the problem that later stage funding has a gap. At what stage you believe like this gap begins? Like at Series A, at Series B, or beyond? And the second question, expanding on this one, you've mentioned the case of Spanish deep tech funds established and then pivoting to private equity. And I'm really passionate about space tech. I can tell you later about it. But what I see that many pivot just because they see lower returns. So what do you believe are the reasons? Is it only mindset, or there are economical reasons which are pushing later stage funds to like more safe strategies?
Yes, I will answer the second one. Yes, I think it's a question of risk. No, I mean, it's true that the private equity, the returns are lower, but it seems to be more secure. Venture capital is seen today as with a lot of risk. So And probably it's true that also the returns of the climate tech companies and the industrial companies are not so big, although we are talking about venture capital. I will in my fund, for example, we will find in the overall fund, we will look for 2.5, 3x multiple. That is not is small for venture capital, but I think is good enough for climate tech. I think it's a combination. Also, the LPs demand the GPs to go to more secure strategies, and also the GPs that, in my case, for example, my Suma Capital originally is built for people from private equity and infra funds, so they are not so used to deal with this venture capital risk. So if you want to tick all the boxes and cover all the risk, it's better to go out of venture capital. And is the question. So you have to try to convince your ICs that you have a huge opportunity, is great, good teams with capacity of execute. So you have to pick a good pitch, communicate good, and it's very important to also to show a lot of passion. But without passion, it's impossible to convince the IC. For me, it's the best arm, the passion, because if you go to numbers, you are lost. Yes.
Okay, any other feedback? And if not, I just wanted, but I get you on, Anna, and I was just to ask. So, okay, we talked about realism, a little bit of pessimism. We're talking about some optimism, and I see ecosystem optimists, and that's wonderful. If I ask to ask and put your 10x a lens on and look into how are we going to be in 10 years from now, what do you want, each of you, really quickly, what do you think that Europe is going to be in the deep tech ecosystem, and what we would have achieved that would actually put us as a scale-up nation? So Liam, maybe to start with you and go all around.
Yeah, the idea that's been kind of gone around my head since Brussels is to talk about a European stock exchange. And I think that would be fantastic to have. And I'd love a scenario where, you know, if we don't have to migrate to Microsoft or Google, that we have actually a corporate in Europe that we can migrate to their product or whatever. And we have a corporate that's formed in Europe and that's moving into the US and stuff like that. So remove the dependency on the US and China and have our own corporates in Europe.
I also see a brilliant future in Europe. We have we know what we have to do, and we think we are in the right path. So.
I would say that maybe we lost the race on social media platforms and so on, technology in that area, but we haven't lost the race on quantum computing that we are all passionate about. We haven't lost the race on life sciences and biotech and medtech. And that's where a lot of research and expertise is coming from Europe, and I think we are going to win it. We are going to be the best and are the best in the world for that.
Yeah, for me, it would be like connected ecosystem. So I think we can't wait till we have like one single market. So we definitely need to connect these 27 markets and open the door for a lot of startups to not operate locally, but like operate in Europe.
I think that, as mentioned before, we have the most difficult ingredients. We have the talent, we have the ecosystem, we have the universities. Let's make sure that bureaucracy and public frameworks help us and push us to succeed in the next 10 years.
So simplicity, flexibility, procurement to buy, and collaboration between all. Thank you very much, and thank you for this panel. I go.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shafi, Liam, Natalia, Dora, Jana, and Carlos. Absolutely brilliant. So please stay where you are for the paparazzi moment. Some big takeaways there. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, but mindset eats everything for breakfast. It's so important. And football is the winning analogy that always puts the ball in the back of the net. Absolutely brilliant. In Europe, we have the best talent in the world and also the best coffee. We are going to have some of that very quickly. We're now going to move on to a 15-minute coffee break, and after that, we're going to have our round tables. Now, the idea with the round tables is that we get together and discuss what can actually make a difference to scale-ups. So the choices you have are access to infrastructure, access to talent, access to corporate, access to finance. The food will remain over there throughout the round table. So you don't have to grab all the food now. It's going to be staying there. There's no rush. Grab a coffee, ABC, always be connected, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you. All right, folks, how are you doing? So listen, the food is going to be on that table for the entire breakout session. So once you have a seat, you can hop up and you can go and get more food and come back. This is it's like an interactive kind of lunch. You can go and get snacks, but we do need you to be sitting at a table. Now, one of the things that I have seen throughout my extremely long career in the world of tech, these gray hairs do not come for free. One of the silver bullets in any situation is cross-functional collaboration. It is where the magic happens. When you step outside of your comfort zone and when you try to solve big problems and address big opportunities, not just with the people in your office, not just with the people in your company, but with people from the broader industry. And we have some of the best minds in Europe in this room from the deep tech sector today. So believe me, you're going to make some magic happen. I know you're going to be pleasantly surprised and impressed. We have 4 tables: access to infrastructure, access to talent, access to finance, and access to corporate. And each of these tables has a leader. I'm going to hand the mic over to Geoffrey, and he's going to explain it more to you. Grab your coffee, grab your sandwiches, and get ready to get busy.
Thank you very much. And actually, to lead this, the idea here is to talk about the challenges and opportunities on the different verticals for have a competitive Europe. So I'm really happy to have Dora leading from Oxford our breakout session on talent and access to talent, and help us to actually reflect on that topic. On the topic of infrastructure, we have Liam from UCD, but we also have Alicia from Olivo Energy. Alicia, I know where you are, and I know our colleagues, Alicia is here, and our colleagues from the Polytechnical in Madrid also, and everyone that wants to talk about infrastructure and want to ID and want to share opinions in there. On corporates and access to corporate, we got Leticia Cabral, our director of the IX Labs at IE, who's going to moderate and help us and get more IDs and everything. And then on the finance one, Jana and a fellow here, and we will be talking with whoever wants. So please join the tables that you want, share some ideas. We'll do some wrap up after in the conclusions, and we hope we're creative and we create new opportunities together.
Fantastic. Merci beaucoup, Geoffrey. So folks, you cannot stand at the cafe. I'm sorry. Grab something and grab a seat at the tables. The cafe will remain open, so you can get up and get more things and come and sit down. This is great. You're not going to miss any of the snacks. We have you covered for snacks. But we need you to sit at the round tables because we have such big opportunities in deep tech in Europe. We need your help to unlock them. We know that you can. So please come and make yourselves comfortable. Reminder, we have corporate, we have finance, we have talent, we have infrastructure. Choose the table wisely. There are no wrong choices. Grab your coffee, grab a seat. I'm going to speak annoyingly on the mic until you're all sitting down. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to come and stand next to you and tell you to come and grab a seat. Honest to God, I'm going to stand here and ask you to grab a seat because we have talented people in the room. We need to leverage your talent. We're taking full advantage of you. Thank you. Okay, come grab a seat, grab some snacks, grab a seat, my friends. That's it. There are no wrong choices. There are only right choices, only good choices. We have 4 amazing tables. We need you at a table. We need your talent. Come and help us unlock the future of deep tech in Europe. You are all invited. Bienvenidos a las mesas. Come and grab some snacks. The tables are going to stay open. You can get up and get more snacks. Don't worry. The snacks are not going to run out. You can have snacks at the tables. Sit down at a table and get involved, okay? There is no standing up and networking. We need you at the tables to sit down and get involved. Thank you, my friends, for your cooperation. Come and join a table. I promise you. Good man, thank you. All right, if you don't have a coffee, you can grab a coffee, but we need you to sit down afterwards. Yes. Okay, great. Folks, we need you at the tables The future of Europe needs you. Yes, you. We need you to get involved and solve some big problems. You are talented people, and this is why you're here. I am the annoying voice on the speakers. I want to share all my appreciation and thanks to the people already sitting down. I love it. I love you. You're my favorite people. To anybody who's not sitting down yet, come on, we need you. Let's go. LFG for Europe. Let's do it. Hey, folks. Hello, hello. Listen, thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. Can we please give all of you a big round of applause? Somos unos cracks. Merci. Muchísimas gracias. Oh, that's a good sign. They're still talking. All right. That's a sign of a good round table when it doesn't want to end. I love it. So I'm going to hand over to Geoffrey. And you got the mic there? It's plugged in? Okay, we got mic 2 and on, or just take this one?
I can take it. I can take that one. Yes. Thank you, Olin. Oh, is it? Yeah. No one wants to fall. Okay. So actually, just to wrap up this morning, we wanted to do 2 things. We wanted to get a little bit your insights, and so thank you. I've seen a great conversation happening on the tables and everything. We wanted to have a little bit insights from each of the table. I see that some are still talking and still building, which is wonderful. I see here that we have the table of access to finance. Who could tell us a little bit what the conversation has been about and some of the opportunities and challenges that you face?
Okay, I mean, really, one of the comments that we were having, we were talking about the Spanish market, okay? And within the Spanish market, one of the difficulties that we had was that you have reinos de taifas. A company that's in Granada being sponsored by Andalusia cannot do research in Valencia because so what we need to do is break down those barriers, okay? So that was one of the things to do with finance,
yeah,
and
but
that's
barriers.
in Spain.
Yeah.
That's in Spain. And at Europe, obviously, I think a single capital market maybe in Holland would make sense, unless the UK comes back into Europe, which I hope so.
That's what we're advocating
then we'll
for.
be back in London, okay?
Wonderful. Any other insights from the table, or everything was said? Okay, I'm really happy to see that actually we talked on the panel before about the importance of commercialization, about having public and private procurement, and I see that one of the biggest table of discussion is actually the access to corporate. So Leticia or whoever on the table, what have been the discussion about?
So I'm going to be a bit of the devil's lawyer because I come from corporate. So we discuss here that more than extracting value from the corporate, there should be a symbiotic relationship, right? Sort of a collaboration in which the startup is leveraging the corporate's knowledge and best practices, while the corporate is also receiving value in terms of agility, innovation, and new ways of doing things, essentially, right? So I think something that would help, we believe that something that would support scale-ups is that the corporates simplify the procurement processes, the legal processes, without breaching security and GDPR essentials, but definitely being more empathetic to the needs of the scale-ups when they are working together and collaborating, right? And in return, both the scale-up can learn from the professional frameworks of the corporate, and the corporate can also learn from the agility and the new mindset that the scale-ups can provide.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So when we're talking to talent, I see a lot of things written down. Who would like to share with us? Dora.
Hello, everyone. Hello again. We've had a really interesting discussion on talent. So I think we identified some challenges and opportunities that we see forthcoming. And what we realize is that these are not going to be limited just to the Spanish market, but we looked at European market. So some of the challenges we identified is that sometimes it's really difficult to match the right talent with the right opportunity. Whether the C-level team has the right experience has also been a debate, and how we can support that going forward. We also talked about innovation centers and universities opening up their IP so that people with commercial experience can commercialize that IP and bring it to the market. We talked about team building and how having the right talent in the startup stage might not be the same with having the right talent in the scale-up stage. And then last but not least, we looked at how difficult it is to assess whether, from a talent perspective, how difficult it is to assess whether it's a good startup to join or not, as you might not have visibility or the knowledge. So if you're an engineer and you are very specialized in a sector, it might be difficult for you to understand if it's a good opportunity to transition from academia to a startup, being more high risk, and understand the cap table and so on and so forth. And last but not least, having visibility of startups and scale-ups in Europe. We know about big unicorns in the US, but how much do we know about unicorns from France, from Denmark, and so on?
Showcasing our role models, no?
Exactly, that's spot on. And then we looked at opportunities, because we wanted to end it on a positive note. And we realized, and this is a term that's been used, that there is a big gray market. Do you know what gray market means? People with gray hair. It's my first time I come across it as well.
You need maturity to scale deep tech. Yeah,
maturity, experience, and in Europe we have a huge number of extremely well-qualified people that are probably less active nowadays, and we can involve them in commercial activities, whether it's leading a startup, scale-up, mentoring, coaching, and so on. We talked about ex-corporates, employees from corporates that have been disillusioned with the experience, who might transition from a corporate environment to wanting to do something that has impact in the national market. We also saw the European lifestyle, values, history, culture, and rule of law as an opportunity to attract talent to Europe. I think that looking over the ocean,
productive, huh?
people are exactly. And we also discussed the opposite of brain drain. Yeah. So we want to attract people that have had that scale-up experience abroad to come here and take on scale-ups. But we can't just say, come here. We need to provide them with incentives. And we all agree that the best incentives to provide is actually fiscal incentives, and making sure that if they set up in a company in a country in Europe, they will not have an exit tax upon exiting that specific country within Europe. So I think taxation is something that can be.
Yeah, now we have EUing to enter, but actually we need also something to be able to exit. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, Dora. Thank you for the talent table. Then to go to the infrastructure, because that is a big quick question. I think that in deep tech, no, like whenever you want to scale and you need actually labs. Like you were talking about gray hair, but it's also heavy in infrastructure. It's in deployment. So what have been the conversation going around there?
I don't think I'm going to be able to do it so thoroughly as they did over there. So that's a challenge to be the last one. But here, as a matter of fact, we come from very different environments, and that was a very interesting conversation about infrastructures, because as you said, the access to infrastructures, or providing access to infrastructures, depending if you talk from the corporate point of view, from the startup point of view, or a research institution like mine, is very key. So it's a key factor to be able to scale up your technologies if you're a startup, or to make sure that your technologies reach out the startup level if you're a research institution. In that sense, so the need is clear, and then we ended up with a very similar problem that we talked in finance. In that, it's fragmentation, regulation, standards, because we were discussing it in both in clean tech and intelligent artificial access to this kind of infrastructures. And of course, if you move within Europe, you have 27, 28. I don't know how many countries anymore. Each one with the regulation, the standards, and everything. You need to be sure what you can do, what you can do when you move there. So that was one of the biggest problems that we're facing right now.
Well, great, a great opportunity, and it's true. Like we need to get rid of that joke Now we need, like, if in 10 years we can get rid of that joke that in order to scale from one country to another in Europe, the first person that you call is your lawyer, is no good. So we need to fix that, and I'm sure that we can. So thank you very much. In order to actually conclude this, and actually Jana has already mentioned it a little bit in the panel. She kind of like stole my point, but that's fine. But I'm really, let's see if we've got the things connected. I don't know at the,
can we get
the back.
The slides up?
Are we?
Hello to the AV team. Thank you so much. We're keeping you on your toes. We are just freestyling.
Okay,
All right.
so this is going really fast. So just wanted to tell you in a snapshot about what RISE Europe is, okay? Jana already mentioned it really well, but it is part of this initiative, and it's part of this initiative of connecting. And actually, when we talk about connecting, I would say, like, look, when you're able to connect actually 14 countries together and have 20 institutions connecting. And here I want to also highlight another big connector that is in the room that I didn't mention before, which is Natalia and the DEEPTECH Alliance. It is crucial because you do the same with the corporates and everything, and we actually have a lot of complementarity with RISE Europe, and we're really happy that you guys are here. But our initiative is actually trying to map and getting as much as we can a representation across Europe, growing and growing every year, and having the most similar to a single market that we could say into supporting the startups and the scale-ups, into helping them to access each of the verticals that you have been trying. Because we all do it in silo. We all do it in our country. We do it even, we say like the first one, whenever you're looking for money, you go, what is the money for my government? Or what is the support that I can get for this or that from the corporates in my country. But actually, if we can take the opportunity, I was said in the panel before, to connect the dots and find the best needs, you know, and also stop in Europe wanting to have everyone is a little piece of the pie. We need to look for the big, where the things need to happen. Like if we're thinking about, you know, semiconductors, or if we're talking about this type of technology, look at Eindhoven, look at IXL, look at iTech XL, look at what's happening there. If we're talking about clean tech, surely Spain has a big, big role to play. If we're talking, so let's really look where the best can be done and be supportive around each other, and that's the spirit that we have RISE. It's a lot of individuals, a lot of passionate people. I welcome you to go to our site and visit and network, because they really, in all of their markets, are driving innovation in the deep tech field and pushing the boundaries. What we want to do is really build Europe as a powerhouse. We really want to connect everything. We discussed, and actually Dora was mentioning now, Europe is the best place to live. We all know it. But actually, is it the best place to build? Is it the best place to scale? Not yet, but it will. And that's what we want, and that's what our project is now. We want to disseminate knowledge. We want to support and lobby also for the cause of our scale-ups. And do a lot of activities. We map all the scale-ups and the startups that we build in all our ecosystems. That starts to do really interesting numbers when we join forces. Talking about 6.1 billion in VC funding between all the top scale-ups that we have in our landscapes. And well, there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of things to lobby, to push, and to make, so we can really have a competitiveness landscape for Europe. Now, we're trying to be as present as we can in Brussels, logically, because it's necessary for the things. But actually, Europe is not the European Commission. Europe is every one of us, is every one of our partnerships, every one of our ecosystems in every country, and that's really what we need to activate in order to be successful. No? And well, no much more. Like, you know, we have big priorities. We're talking about exits. That it's, you know, it's not fair to enter, but not to be able to get off. And we need more things to happen. We need to incentivize public procurement. We need to buy from our companies. It's not only good to invest in them, but we need to make them deploy, to make them build, and to make that by commercializing their product. And well, we need to mobilize private capital. And actually, what was announced in the IC with the European Scale-Up Fund was a wonderful news for us this year. So no more. Actually, we were really happy to have you here on behalf of South Summit, on behalf of IE School of Science and Technology, on behalf of Invierte. Really thank you for being to this Deep Tech Forum. Thank you for being participative in the conversation. This can only be built together, and we're going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Geoffrey Gerard from the IE School of Science and Technology. Thanks to all of you for being here and being la leche, as we say. Absolutely fantastic. What amazing insights, amazing presentations, amazing speakers. And really, the biggest mic drop there, said by Geoffrey, was Europe is every one of us. So it's time for Europe to rise. Let's do it. Thank you so much for being here. My name's Oisín Lunny, ABC. Always be connecting. See you next time.